Hello, everyone. Hi. Whew. Good to see everyone. All these big faces. All right. Okay. So we're going to start the conference off on what's been happening in the past. So the talk is called "How do you do more? How do you move forward?" How many of you know what Glovo is? Perfect. Cool. Just flew in from Spain, so we are Uber's biggest threat around the world. That's my favorite line. It's a good summary because we do everything besides rideshare. We deliver food, groceries, Band-Aids, flowers, experiences. And, we're going to talk about what's been happening in tech. It's happened both in the US and in Europe. I'm going to be a little bit lighthearted about this because it is a bit sad to talk about layoffs on stage in an industry full of people who are in that industry. But please loudly react. Please shout. Please boo. Feel free to lighten the mood. Perfect. All right. How many of you saw the UXDF talk and EMEA called Focus? Great. I have a couple people here, so there is no overlap, so do not worry. I do not repeat my talk. All right. So my whole thing is that we focus on people. So this is my leadership style. This is the way I run the team. We run a 91-person team. We support the company in 25 countries. We essentially are 1/5 of the global food industry. 12% of all food in Korea, for example, goes through our platform. So if you have not heard of us, the next time you go on a trip, please feel free to use the app. This is my beautiful team back in November. So at peak, we were 91 people. This is pre the chaos that ensued. And so this is the team that I built. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. Oh, D.C. beautiful. So the talk in Europe this never happens. No one flies much. I now live in Barcelona, which looks very similar, except for we have a beach. So, DC, but with a lot better water. Right. And so my whole thing is focusing on people. First of all, who is this guy on stage and why should you listen to me? Cool. So I've been in a lot of companies. People are like, oh, wait, you have either really good skincare or you don't stay places very long. And it's both. So I get the job done. I build a team. I launch a product. I like to move on. I then was a consultant for a couple of years. I then was in a really weird position for a designer. I was head of customer loyalty for Gap. That was a weird position because I didn't do any design work for 2 years. And then I went to Booking.com in Amsterdam. Really, really loved it. Mixture of really weird structures. So designers manage engineers. Engineers could manage copywriters. Copywriters could manage PMs. It was fully cross-functional management. Very odd. They changed it, but it took them 20 years to change it. And it worked for a while. It doesn't work so much anymore. And now I'm at Glovo. And so our vision is to give everyone easy access to anything in their city. Can you imagine what it feels like to try to give everyone everything? Right? In design, we're like, it works for everyone, it works for no one, right? You're building the lowest common denominator product. But in our space, you're essentially cracking vertical by vertical by vertical. And so what that really means is that we do food, shops, supermarket, beauty and care, and we deliver anything that's in a box. But originally, we were a concierge service. So about 8 years ago, if you wanted toilet paper and we didn't have Walmart on the platform, you would say, hey, I want toilet paper. And a guy would run into the store and buy it on his expense card and bring it to you. And now this kind of sounds like what, maybe Grubhub or DoorDash, other companies, Instacart did, but we were doing it first. And so because we were a small player in Spain and Portugal and Italy, no one really thought of anything. And then we are now, of course, much, much bigger. So first, talk about org structure before all the layoffs in February. Most companies are either federated or decentralized, centralized, or hybrid. Raise your hand if you're in a hybrid organization. Okay, about half. Raise your hand if you are centralized. And then raise your hand if you are decentralized and or independent and don't work with a team. Okay, cool. So there are pros and cons to all of them, right? So my team structure was in between centralized and decentralized. I love this chart because it makes us look cool because we're like Apple. Which just meant that people were stuck in their silos for a very long time and couldn't switch jobs, right? But actually when I joined, I said, hey, let's make a program where you can transfer teams. Let's give so much more scope and the opportunity to stay at the company for people who are in our teams. And this was really great. And I was there for about a year before the kind of before the world changed. And the teams were structured like this. So designers, researchers were embedded in teams. At most, they were supporting 2 teams. You had designers and copywriters, and everyone kind of focused on so much, but they really had a scope that they could learn and become an expert in. Then we said, all right, if we are going to have to downsize, if we're going to look for savings, these are the people affected in my team. What do we do? Do we give them more teams to support? Do we rotate them more often? Do we only have seniors? Do we bring in a lot more juniors? Like, how do you actually spend the cash, and how do you grow the team? So, big changes. First thing you said is we're going to centralize research. By a show of yay or boos, what do you think this did? Boo. All the stakeholders said, wait, you're taking my researchers from us. And how many of you know how lovely it is to be a researcher? People often don't take you very seriously. You do amazing work, and they're like, oh, but I didn't like the 17-page report you sent me. But then you take them away, and they freak out because they do know the value, and they just don't want to acknowledge it sometimes. So when we centralized research, we said, hey, every single person in product and in tech needs to be on this ladder. You've been delegating this to research for so long. You've been delegating this to the UX team. Your team is actually very, very far away from the customer. So we started this whole strategy called voice of the user. Can you speak the voice of the user? Is it just UX doing this, or can all of you do it? Can PM do it? Engineering managers do it? Can data analysts do it? Can product marketing do it? So of course you start with ask what they do, ask what's done in the past, but you have to go further. You have to show them things that they've never seen before, test new concepts, things that are in design, things that are engineering, beta testing, small city testing, batch testing, all above. So we said, if we're going to get on this ladder, there's a couple of things we need to do. We already support a large repository of over 15,000 research studies, insights, recommendations. We already have the journey maps, and we do so many other things to provide resources, and we see very low adoption and engagement. If we ever reduce this team, or if we centralize this team, who is going to maintain, who is going to contribute, and who is going to keep the quality up of all the research if it gets democratized or centralized? So we said, well, we probably can't do as much. Maybe at the very least, we make a new asset called a UXR blueprint. So this is kind of the combination of a journey map, a deep dive, market analysis, some product management like PRFAQs, PIDs, RFCs, what's feasible, what's desirable, and what is scalable or something that's valuable for the company to do. And so these blueprints have a way for everyone to contribute. You can contribute market analysis, you can contribute a customer phone call, you can flag a customer service, a complaint, and it became a thing that everyone could contribute to. How many people think that the quality of research done by non-researchers is the same as researchers? No. So we said, cool, we're going to build this amazing Airtable. First thing that happened is IT called me. You just added 8,000 users to Airtable? That was not in the budget. I was like, it's the new tool. It's going to save us money in the long run. They're like, okay, well, this quarter is screwed. So, and then February hit. How many of you know what I'm talking about in February? How many of you saw the crazy headlines, the LinkedIn posts? We're like, hey, we're already trying to save money. We got this. And then we're like, why is everyone just firing people? That's not the first option, right? That can't be the only thing you do in this situation. So let me provide some color to that. So how did we get here? Back in 2019, 2018, pre-pandemic, everyone was spending money. Everyone was making money. Everything was up to the right, up to the right, up to the right. Revenue, GMV, profit, not profit in terms of actual profit, because tech companies don't like that, but like profit in terms of like we had money to spend and no one was asking how we spent it. And so everyone was doing super, super well and spending money and acquiring companies and building new teams and growing and scaling. And one of the big things that annoyed us was that, we had this one player who was just like, it was Uber, DoorDash, and Delivery Hero. And Delivery Hero was in every market Uber wasn't in, and we couldn't grow anywhere. And then they gave us an offer we couldn't refuse, and then we joined Delivery Hero. Delivery Hero, with the combination of Glovo, it is the largest delivery player in the world outside of China, in 75 countries. About 20 million orders a month alone on our platform in just our countries. Globally, it's about 1 order a second in every country. So we said, oh, money is no longer a problem, right? We are now this big behemoth. We've merged. They take our debt. We're good to go. We're going to optimize, merge costs, and move on. Then the CEO, Nicholas, gave this amazing talk, which is presented in like this graphic here about how We need to be focused on local economies, local markets, and communities. We need to do what works for them. And so we built this massive expansion fund. And then we saw this. So Delivery Hero as a group and Glovo as part of Delivery Hero was doing very well. Food Panda's in the group. We have Foodora, we have Woowa, we have tons of companies you probably haven't heard of. And then there were the small players like Deliveroo, Just Eat Takeaway. And we said, hey, if they're doing layoffs, they're probably just too small to be able to get through this period. And then it kept growing and growing and growing. Focus a little bit on this section right here, where you see it ramp up to crazy levels. And this is after the pandemic gave us tons of money. For the food industry and for delivery overall, people were delivering groceries and food at record numbers. And then suddenly, outside opened. And he said, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't have tripled the size of the engineering team and opened 15 new offices and partnered with Katy Perry and, things that our industry was doing. And we said, okay, what are we going to do? And then we saw this. And it was just nonstop cuts. And so we made a small cut of our own. For 5,000 people, we cut 250. This is a smaller percentage than most of our peers, but it's still a huge impact. If you've never been a manager who's had to cut people or been in a layoff, it is demoralizing at the very least. I had to train managers who have never fired someone, let alone laid someone off, let alone told someone who just moved halfway around the world that they should move back with their family and kids 2 weeks after starting. The idea of rescinding offers didn't exist in people's minds who have never been managers before. I've been a director now for 3.5 years. I was at Booking.com when the pandemic killed travel. So I had seen it, I lived it, I had gone through burnout leave, I had gone through therapy, I had gone through having a great manager and then having a shit manager. So I said, let's do this a little differently, but also we need an action plan, because if we are going to have to do this, we need to figure out what happens next. So how do we move forward? But also taking care of the people we have. If you make a cut, you don't want to be one of these people who cuts multiple times. I think it's very sloppy what Twitter did. I think it's very sloppy what Amazon did. I think you should make cuts, and then everyone who remains should go back to having peace of mind, financial stability, the ability to plan a family, buy a house, to work, and not have anxiety all day. So measure 3, 4, 5 times, cut 1, right? All right. So then I said, we need to focus on the people, right? My focus is on people. So we have friends who are impacted. What can we do in the local communities? What can we do for our allies, DoorDash, Uber? We already were supporting and working with Uber and Bolt in Ukraine. In Ukraine, in the war, we are the delivery player delivering all food, groceries, everything for the UN and the Red Cross. We said, hey, you guys are hurting, we're hurting. What can we do to stop fighting each other and wasting money, marketing against each other, and spend money on our teams and our people? So looked at our friends. And then, there's some friends with benefits. They were still ordering food. They were still competing with us. Just Eat hired Katy Perry the day after they did layoffs. We're like, what are you doing? I thought we agreed not to do this to each other. We didn't hire Katy Perry. Then, there are families. We went through the list of people and we said, hey, who's having a kid? Who just had a kid? Who has families? Who has a visa? Who needs to move back to their country? Whose apartments are we paying for? Whose relocation would get rescinded? And we said, all policies are going to be wiped. Keep all the money, keep the relocation, keep everything possible. If we have to send you back, we will cover the flights. This was a hard one. Essentially, this meant cutting more people to be able to give better packages, but it also meant that everyone who stayed would have perfect peace of mind. This is probably the hardest thing to explain to a junior manager. Like, hey, I need you to fire this one person. I know they are not a low performer. I know there's no reason you would ever get rid of this person, but they are in Spain. They can live here. They can stay in their home. They don't get sent back to their country. They have no kids. We're going to give them 3, 4, 5 months of salary and introduce them to a new job we know exists down the street. Now, that seems like a lot, and it is. And it was also not the easiest call. People were like, this is terrible. You could just not fire them. We could just cancel all coffee. Why is the CEO taking pay at all? There's lots of things you can do and you can't do, and we tried everything. And then again, 250 was the number we reached. We said, okay, look, we have the service providers are also hurting. Imagine being an employee at a company or being the owner of a restaurant, and then suddenly the recession hits, everyone's getting fired, you're not getting sales. You still have rent to pay, you still have your mortgage, you still have your kids, you still have your family. You don't want the whole neighborhood closing down and emptying shop. For the companies on Glovo, we are probably somewhere between 25 to 50% of all of their revenue and sales. If we close a market, they are going to have to figure out how to make half of their income overnight. If we shut down too many teams, they will be unsupported and probably will have a struggle to make ends meet. So it goes both ways. Being a marketplace is very tricky, not just in the product, but also in the business. We have international teams who, when inflation goes up, they get paid a lot less money, right? Everything costs a lot more, but they get paid the same. And then we have local ops and logistics. Here, they're super happy because we're telling them that you're going to be taken care of. Oftentimes, companies of our size, especially if you have customer service or ops, they're not employees, right? You don't give them benefits. You don't do severance packages. You outsource. So we said, hey, we're treating you like everyone else. We have one blanket policy for everyone. You're going to be taken care of. In HQ, we told everyone, you need to hit these targets. You need to bring all your costs down. I know you like your fancy coffee. I know you like flying economy premium. I know you like, all these things. Cool. Marriott can wait. Everything gets cut. We need to spend $0 every day until we make revenue back to the numbers we had before. And that was super, super hard. And so we looked for innovative partners. We said, the goal is not to replace people. The goal is to be able to exist and be able to afford to pay the people we have. So no growth, just sustainability. We looked for partners that did drone delivery. We looked for partners that could deliver for us. We looked for expansion plans with UPS and FedEx and companies like that. And then we said, all right, it's going to be a big deal to get this change approved by the HIPPOs. How many of you know what HIPPOs are? So the highest income or highest paid person's opinion. So these are the two founders of the company. Imagine you ran a company for 8 years and then you sold it for $40 billion. Are you going to be the first person to feel the price of milk go up? No. Right? Are you going to be the first person who knows everything in HR to do because your company didn't exist during the last recession, the last layoff wave, any of the bad turndowns in the market? No. So we said we need to make sure that they understand why we're doing it this way. And part of the autonomy at my company is that each director, each VP was allowed to build the team that they wanted and also build the policies they wanted, which meant that my team is super international, super diverse. Other teams are super local. So we had unique challenges, and therefore I had to pitch a unique proposal. And that was great. We said everyone impacts UX, so we need to align all cuts across the business so that this makes sense, right? You can't just suddenly cut all of CX and then think the NPS score won't go down. You can't cut all of account managers and think the partners are going to stay on the platform. You can't just blanketly make these decisions in silos. It needs to really be a group decision about how we do this and how we treat people and how we want to be known for doing this and handling this situation. So we need to scale up a couple of things. Any guesses as to what happens when you take a team of 90 and you take it to 70? What do you have to automate? What do you need to do differently? No guess is a bad guess. Process. First thing we said is we need to do more empathy building. All right, we're paying all these tools. We're doing a bunch of work to really test the product. We have 5,000 people. Why don't they test the product? Right? Why don't we get the CEOs and the VPs and the directors and every single person in the company going out being couriers, going out helping the restaurants fulfill orders, going out and figuring out what the pain points of having a bag of 84 meals rip in the middle of a staircase when you're trying to do delivery. Like, go out and actually solve the problems that they're going to be hitting them today as they make less money, as they get less sales, as they're worried. Go feel the pain and let's solve it that way. Don't use the playbooks of yesterday for the problems of tomorrow. We needed to scale up self-service research. So this was my most painful decision, was bringing the team of 24, 23 researchers to 9. We had a researcher in almost every group. Now we have a centralized research team that essentially focuses on the entire company, which means that a lot of people were either going to ship high risk, low traction product, or they were just going to do no research at all. So we said, we're not going to democratize research fully. We need to give you the access and the knowledge and the training of how to do research and what to use from what's already been done to avoid waste of time and money on things you could just use or reuse. We also needed to scale up research operations. Research operations is my favorite team. Research operations and design operations really are the magic. They are the nitro in the car. They are the wind in the sails. Everything runs much smoother when you have people taking care of all the things that drive us crazy. But they go more and beyond that, especially in times like this. So they're renegotiating processes. They're changing the ways of working. They're hubbing org structure. They're doing rollouts. They're doing trainings. They're getting us new, cheaper font licenses. They're negotiating with Figma to include FigJam and stop charging us $5 a seat. There's so much that they help. And then we said there's things we need to scale down, right? So things we can spend less money on and things that are costing us money. So silos. How many of you know what silos are? So these are actual silos, but the silos in our companies also always show in the product. They show in how you do releases. They show in how things ship. They show in the politics. So you said, we need to actually have a concerted effort against these silos. This is getting a little crazy. No matter how pretty the silos are, they're not going to help. So we also said redundancy. How many of you seen Office Space? Cool. All right. So hopefully none of you have red staplers, but this is the guy from Office Space. And he said, there's a bunch of things we're doing that are the exact same thing, but the next department's doing. So we had BPMs and TPMs and all that. Like we had 8 different kinds of product managers, and every department had to have their own. And they had program managers. And we're like, wait, so your job is to coordinate efforts across the other teams. And then their job is to coordinate with you to coordinate jobs across the teams. So you're maybe doing the same job. And they said, no, I do it from the technical side. And he said, is design not technical? And they said, well, you don't have engineering degrees. And we're like, all right, so maybe we should just merge your teams together. No one gets fired, but maybe you guys should do this together. Maybe you all should do this together. So we merged them and we said, all right, we've reorged, we've centralized research, we've merged program managers. Now what? First things first, little happiness. This is our mascot, Gloppy. He's a pineapple. We have emojis for him. You seen that emoji with like the coffee and the house on fire? Yeah, this is how we all felt. We're like, yeah, all these processes. Oh yeah, changes, more work, stress and more work at the same time. Yay. Ooh, this is fine. And this is what we all felt like. And then I was on stage smiling, being like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. This is fine. Also, there's no more coffee, so just fire. All right. Okay, So then we said, hey, maybe we should tackle this like a design thinking challenge. So what we've been doing has been so focused on function, scale, things running as we think they should run. What if we put more fun into this? What if we prioritize a bit more what people want to do and not just what we think they need to do? So using the same MVP model you use for your products, we use for the business. But then we also said, we're going to get less done in the product. We're going to be able to move slower. The agility will go down. We need to add more delight. If we're going to be adding less features or functionality per month, per sprint, at least we can do is make it amazing, make it something worth talking about. We also said we need to really ramp up our tooling. So I'll give a little shout out to Rally because we automated how we do recruitment. We automated how we do screeners. We automated how we do compensation. We automated how we did the entire research ops process in terms of scheduling, recruiting candidates, getting them to show up on time, doing reminders, paying them, because we said we have better things to do and we have a lot of work to do in all these process changes. This team can't just be stuck doing the same exact job day in, day out. What can we do? Is it cheaper for us to pay the software or for us to do it ourselves? And it was much cheaper for us to just get the software. And then we said, all right, democratizing research for basic research. So we went to UserZoom. And a couple other companies like this do the same thing. So I'm not shouting out just one company. They ended up getting bought by user testing. So we're like, yay, contract will be fun to renew next year. But, the most expensive company buys the best product. We said we should definitely be using it, but eventually we will have the ROI go down. The cost of this is going to be super high. But at the beginning, we gave every PM, every data analyst, every researcher, every designer direct access. You could run a research study on any public app within 30 seconds. You could run SUS, QX score, any usability score testing on your own app within days. And we said that is way worth it to reduce the timelines and get speed up while we end up having to reduce the team. We then said there's going to be tons of issues, right? If we do these cuts, naturally, the team, the company are going to look for the people who get paid the most, people who cost the most, with big international teams, massive relocation packages, expansion plans being cut. We are going to be much, much worse at supporting local markets. And so we said localization testing has to be key. We made playbooks and training for all of research, all of localization, how to work with design, and all the new structure, and then we trained everyone. We did a ton of work and said, you need to go meet with at least no less than 5 users a quarter. So every PM flies to a market and meets with 5 customers, 5 partners, 5 couriers, 5 of someone who they are directly building product for. So does data, so does engineering, so does design. And then we said we need to also shadow internal users, account managers, customer support, and sales. So while we had programs for this before, we made it mandatory. This was a key for us to be able to move fast, still have good insights, still de-risk, but without having the same size team. And we said we need to score ourselves when we do this testing internally and score our competitors and make sure we're not falling too far behind just because our team is smaller. You can do any number of scale, but we used the QX score scale and said at least 85.5. But when the market's at 90 or 91, obviously the benchmark moves to 95, 97. And so shout out to the QX score because it's a mixture of quantitative and qualitative, task-based and behavioral. If you've not heard of it, check it out. You can do it without using user zoom. It's just really mixing these tests on the left with your similar NPS survey research on the right. Companies that really, really win at this are Walmart and Asda. And it's a really good metric to kind of show how the NPS only shows you oftentimes what's going wrong, but not what people are missing or lacking or want. So the combination in the QX score was quite useful. We started to launch advisory boards. So we said if we can talk to less people, if we have less research capacity, the least we can do is bring in the best restaurants, the best grocery stores, the super user customers, the best couriers, and let them directly advise product roadmaps. Let them directly give feedback as to what we should and shouldn't build right now. So changing the way we actually build priorities. And then second to last thing is we started to say research can't help everyone. If it's a big project, long-term, deep investment, we call it a gold project. You get a dedicated research team of 2 to 3 people with a lead researcher and they embed with you. Everyone else gets fractional support. And then one last thing is we changed our meeting structure. You hear all process changes and you hear meetings, more meetings, review meetings, QBR meetings, MBR meetings, and meetings. And so we said, no, we're going to do one-on-ones with the manager bi-weekly, so every 2 weeks. So drop the meeting cadence. We're going to do newsletters for research to the entire company. So less show and tells, less share out, but more access. And then we said, we need to revamp our structure. So Hotjar for web, Glassbox for mobile. We're going to give everyone direct access to UX KPIs, friction reports, what is happening, and session replays. So you can go watch and see exactly what the issue is. And this is how we, again, federate a little bit of research back into the business. So VPs, anyone can just log in. A customer support agent gets a log right now, and they see a bunch of things like iOS 13, iPhone plus 2. Yeah, I had a problem, it crashed. And then they can go watch what they were doing before it crashed. So again, just demonstrably changing the way we distribute UXI. And this is how we've been able to get forward. This is how we were able to move forward. This is how we were going to move forward going on. I think the main thing is that we are not going to suddenly go back from this. I think these are changes that were overdue in some cases. And even if we get the scale and so the budget's back to scale, I think we will end up keeping these practices and just scaling them along with the team. So that is the positive, rosy outlook, and I'm not taking questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, it was incredible to listen to you talk so empathetically about something that can be really stressful. And I really enjoyed how, sometimes when you have these massive cuts and layoffs, you can expect people to just do more work. And you really approach this through the lens of supporting your team, creating new processes, and really going back to the basics of empowering every single individual to get closer to the customer. So I love that. So now we have some time for questions from the audience or from those online. So we have a throw box and a something in the UXDX shirt right there. So raise your hands and we will come to you. Awesome.
No question is too small.
Hello. Could you say something about, do you do less research, more research now? Can you say how it impacted the quality of the research you do?
Yeah, so at the beginning we did less research. The reorg, the restructure was a huge toll to morale. We canceled work for 2 to 3 weeks. We gave everyone vacations, and then we said, let's come back and replan roadmaps. So we cleared all of research roadmaps, and we said, director level feedback is going to dictate the priorities from the business, and then the UXR team should propose the other half of the roadmap based on knowledge of the business themselves. And so it was a complete like a wipe of the slate. And so much slower for Q1, and now in Q2 we are doing much more research. And then the quality, I would say, TBD, but we'll know when we ship something based on this research and if it is as predictable as it was before or not. But I think that we are much better off this way.
Thank you.
Right there. You can just toss it right back.
It's like a beach ball.
Like a beach ball. Perfect.
Hi, thank you for your talk. Curious, in one of the latter slides, you talked about how some products are gold products and you go down the line for the amount of research that they get. For those teams or products that don't get as much research, what is your relationship to secondary research?
Yeah. So by giving everyone the tools to do self-service and access everything that was done before, there is less of a need for us to do net new research. And this was a big issue we had before because researchers were going in, being asked to do things, and they're like, we already have that. And so we just ramped up that access and that self-service tooling. The second thing was, it's not that the entire project or team is considered low priority. It's a project-by-project basis. So essentially, anyone who runs research sends a ticket. I know, I love those. Sends a ticket to research operations, and they do the quick analysis with some AI help to say, we have this already, or this is net new. Here's a researcher for half a sprint. Make a research plan. They're going to give it to you to execute. So in those cases, the PM and the designer execute the research, and they synthesize, and they submit it back to the repository. It gets reviewed and then actually saved. For a silver or gold, it's about a matter of time. You get a dedicated researcher, but just if you're gold, you get it for the entire quarter, maybe 2 or 3 researchers, maybe a travel budget to go fly and visit the problem and observe. For a silver, we try to optimize on costs as much as possible, but you still have a dedicated researcher who's an expert and, not have to buy sessions and things like that.
Awesome, right there.
This is kind of a question for everybody here. I'm just wondering how many of us have been laid off in a UX role?
How many of you have been laid off in a UX?
A lot less than I thought.
Like a third? Well,
Ever. Yep.
Okay, ever about half in the last year? Okay, that's enough.
Thank you.
All right.
You described a really thoughtful and human-based approach to a really tough business situation, and you compared that to some of your competitors who maybe didn't approach it that way. I'm just wondering if you received any pushback in your organization to having that approach and how you handled that.
Yes. People who know me know that I am what is called spicy in a corporate environment. So I'm pretty unfiltered. I prefer my sake that way. I prefer my work that way. It is not what everyone wanted us to do or wanted me to do. It is what I thought we should do. The original list was a spreadsheet filtered by salary, highest, lowest. And they said, reach this number. Look at the teams you have, spread it out, but reach this number. And I said, okay, great. This person who makes the most money was the person we just hired, spent $20K relocating their entire family and doing visas and paid for their first apartment. Doesn't make sense for the company to get rid of this person, even from a business case. Eyes open. And then they're like, okay, well then here's it filtered by the business case and this factor. I'm like, cool, okay, this person just had a baby, so no. This person just bought a house, so no. Give me more than just a spreadsheet of numbers. And grades and salaries and equity packages. Like, give me what we found out during the interview. And then I already have a practice of having one-on-ones with my entire department twice a year. So I have pretty recent knowledge of what's going on, at least no later than 5 months old for every single person in the team. Then asked my minus ones without their knowledge, which is a bit creepy. Like, oh, so how's this person doing? And you have to catch up and like ask more about what's happening recently. Then made the call. It's a lot slower. It definitely was not advised, but much happier with the outcome. I actually was able to rehire 3 people, and everyone who left at first was very angry, lots of public complaints and things like this. 85% of them have new jobs now, mostly assisted by us.
Up front?
Let us speak.
Nice.
So, yeah, wow. Cool. Yeah, so you talk, this is a very practical question. You talked about suddenly releasing user Zoom to your whole organization all at once. And you mentioned a playbook. I just want to know, like, what did you do? Could you talk briefly about like how you enabled that and made that happen?
Yeah, this was second curse, right? It's a clusterfuck. All right. So we said the platforms that don't charge per seat are the best because we have no idea what it's going to be like after this Armageddon. So we said user Zoom was great. Well, the platforms were great because they didn't charge per seat; they charged per usage. So we could give everyone a seat. Second, we said we need to do training. There's PMs who are great at UXR, people who have had research dedicated to them before, people who have never had it, people who don't want it, people who want it. First, I need corporate executive buy-in. So I got my boss, who's the CPO, Chief Product Officer of the company, to make it a all-hands topic. So we said, research is not unimportant just because we cut the majority of the team. And I was like, why would you say it that way? That sounds bad. But he said it's equally important, and if you ship things without research, we will flag it, and it will not get you the marks you think it will get you in your performance review. Like, you need to de-risk, you need to evaluate, you need to validate. Great. Second, training them in user Zoom. They have an amazing academy. They have amazing account managers. That was the third thing. The fourth thing we did is we actually made everyone go through and actually launch a test within the first week and then present the findings. And then we like course corrected. We're like, you're biased. You thought you did a confirmation bias thing here. Actually, the customer never mentioned a solution. The customer mentioned a problem. There are multiple solutions to this problem. And so we kind of started to teach them how to be junior researchers.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Please give another round of applause.
Thank you.